Blending balance and complaining about maps or Smurf accounts is a very popular sport nowadays in StarCraft 2. While it's satisfying for the ego to say that you lost because you played a Smurf or because a given race is broken, it rarely tells the whole story. And as much as it's gratifying in the short term, it's really preventing you from making progress in the long run. Today I'll share with you the tools that have helped me, along with many of my students, to break free from this whining addiction and finally get the precious MMR you deserve. And as a French person, I can assert that I know a lot when it comes to the art of complaining. But first, let's take a quick look at the psychological concept. So you may have heard of a concept called the locus of control. If you believe that you're primarily responsible for the events that happen to you, then you possess what is known as an internal locus of control. On the other hand, if you perceive external factors as determining the outcomes in your life, then you would be considered to have an external locus of control. In the case of StarCraft 2, you could split many different things into two categories: the things you can control, or at least influence, and the things there's nothing you can do about. An internal locus of control would have you focus on the things you can improve: your builds, your decision making, army control, and of course other aspects such as being able to persevere in the face of difficulties or challenges, remaining calm and grounded when you're tilting towards anger, and so forth. An external locus of control would have you focus on things outside of your reach. The state of balance and a map pool are the typical examples, but also complaining that your opponent doesn't play how he's supposed to play, or overanalyzing meaningless things such as whether or not your opponent is hacking or smurfing. None of these elements help you in any stretch of the imagination. On the contrary, they consume energy and steal what I like to call mental bandwidth, making you less able to actually deal with the current situation. Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "Give me the patience to reconcile with what I am not able to change, give me strength to change what I can, and give me the wisdom to distinguish one from another." Very often we get caught up in the stream of our thoughts, making it difficult to even realize there's nothing we can do about a situation. Countless hours spent on theory crafting balanced ideas and the perfect game, while having zero influence to ever put these changes into effect. Why waste all that energy when you could instead look at what you are able to change, as Marcus Aurelius suggests? Thinking about balance all the time, or even blaming it for your losses, is obviously not helpful, as you already know, but we sometimes feel like we've fallen victims to an injustice, namely imbalance. My suggestion is that this self-talk is counterproductive, even if it's true. Even if indeed the game is tilting in favor of a race or another, you're still making the situation worse. Pointing the finger at a broken tire doesn't fix the damn tire. You still need to take action to fix it. So if you think Protoss, Terran or such is too strong, recognize it and embrace it, then try and find solutions to perform regardless. There's only so much balance can do to you, after all. When your race was actually the one performing best, I hardly believe that you were rank 1 Grandmaster, showing that the vast majority of your improvement capacities are actually in your own hands, which is a great news. Ownership of one's victories and defeats really is the antidote to resentment towards the world. Quit the wish to find a culprit for your losses, and instead aim at finding solutions to win more. There's always way more room for improvement, especially in places where you don't expect them. And there's always way more in you than you can possibly imagine. So let go of all that bullshit balance talk and focus on what you can improve. Speaking of improvement, if you're tired of being a doormat every time you queue a ladder game, then you should consider booking a one-on-one session with me. We'll work on your fundamentals, builds, mentality, and all the things that will make you better at the game. So you can do so by joining my Discord in the description. Whether you queue a ladder game or you enter a lobby to play an important match, you always hope that you'll come out of it victorious. That's bloody obvious. But winning shouldn't necessarily be a goal, or at least it shouldn't be too much at the forefront of your head. Turns out your opponent also wants to win, maybe even more than you do, who knows. "I want to be number one" is not very useful when everyone else in the room also wants to be number one. My point is, whether you win or not is not fully in your control. All you can do is influence it as much as you can, but that's it. Even Cyril only has 71% win rate in tournament matches at the time I'm recording this video. Many players are happy when they win and they're not when they don't, but that's a very immature approach to improvement. Let me explain. I'm sure you've played dozens of games in which you felt you played bad, and yet you've won these games. And I'm sure you've also lost games in which you felt you played great. External factors like the level of your opponent can often seal the deal between a win or a loss. You could also play a great game and throw it away, and God knows I know about that. If you rejoice after winning a game, even if you felt you played awful, there might be an issue somewhere. Of course, you'd much rather bring the victory home than not, but still, there's a lot to learn and you should still take a deep look at the things you can improve. Same as when you lose a game when you felt you did well. If you judge that the game was overall well played, but you threw it away with a bad decision or a questionable fight, that doesn't mean that everything you did should be thrown to the trash, right? So instead of having to win as a goal, switch to something that you instead have full control over. Your game plan, strategies, and all the things I've talked about in previous videos. Instead of judging the quality of your play solely through the lens of the color of your match history, you will now judge every game individually through a whole new prism. You'll judge whether or not you've respected your game philosophy, like being aggressive even if you feel pressured. You'll compare your benchmarks regarding your build and whether you're able to improve your timings. The idea is that if you respect these elements with precision and intent, the likelihood that you'll end up winning as a consequence will be very high. We shift our focus from winning, which is not fully in our control, to our build, game plan, playstyle, and all the things that we have 100% control over. Paradoxically, succeeding in doing that will drastically increase the chance that your match history will be greener. It's not so much that certain successful players seem to not give a damn about winning, or that they have no emotion. It's rather that they have put their self-esteem into doing the greatest job they can, and then the results shall follow. As a little anecdote, I believe it was WCS Montreal 2019. We were waiting for Cyril to finish his finals to get some food. I think he played against Renner, I'm not sure, but we watched the ZVZ, which obviously was our favorite matchup back then, and Cyril demolished the guy. Quite frankly, he destroyed the whole tournament. And once he was done, he couldn't stop complaining about the single game he lost in the finals. People were cheering for him, congratulating him, taking pictures with him. And we sat in front of each other at the restaurant and he was still mad that he lost a scouting Zergling or something like that and thus dropping that map. One single map. You might say this is an extreme, and maybe it is. But you don't accidentally create the legacy Cyril has built for himself. But it's very interesting from a psychological perspective. Cyril didn't care so much about winning, although I'm sure he was glad he did, but what mattered most to him during the games was playing as flawlessly as possible, making as fewer mistakes as he could. And after an unbelievably dominating victory in the whole event, he would still look at the tiny things he could improve. By the way, Cyril, throughout his whole career, almost always refused any balanced discussion as far as I can remember. He would always mind his own business and focus on the job that needs to get done. So do your job and the result will be added to you. Once again, if you felt that this video was valuable, please consider joining my Discord in the description below or book a one-on-one coaching session with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.